Beneath the Paper Stars. In a quiet town nestled between the hills and the sea, lived a girl named Alara who worked in a little bookshop that smelled of lavender and old stories. She spent her days arranging books by color, sipping chamomile tea, and scribbling unfinished poems in the margins of receipts. Her world was small, gentle, and quietly beautiful, but she often dreamed of something more. Across town, Luca was a schoolteacher with a soul full of music and a heart that had once been broken too deeply to mend. He lived alone in a small house with a piano no one had played in years and shelves filled with paper cranes folded during long, sleepless nights. He taught literature, told stories that made students believe in magic, and wore the sadness behind his eyes like an old, forgotten coat. They met on a rainy Tuesday. Alara had just closed the shop when she realized she'd left her umbrella at home. The sky was weeping gently, and she stood beneath the awning, waiting for the storm to soften. That's when Luca appeared, tall, quiet, with an umbrella in one hand and a worn copy of Wuthering Heights in the other. "Need a little shelter?" he asked, offering the umbrella without a smile, but with kindness in his voice. She hesitated only a second before stepping under it. "Only if you don't mind walking a stranger through the rain." "I've always trusted strangers more than mirrors," he replied. They walked in silence, the kind that wasn't empty but full of curiosity, wonder, and a quiet recognition neither of them could explain. Over the next few weeks, they saw each other often. Sometimes by accident, sometimes by intention poorly disguised. He would stop by the bookshop, asking about poetry collections he already owned. She would pass by the school, lingering near the fence just long enough to hear his voice teaching Shakespeare. One evening, Luca invited Alara to his house for tea. There, she saw the paper cranes for the first time. "They say if you fold 1,000, your heart's wish will come true," he said softly. I stopped counting after 300. She asked if he'd ever told anyone what his wish was. "No," he said. "But I think it's starting to come true anyway." That night, Alara stayed late. They didn't kiss. They didn't even touch. But they read Neruda aloud by candlelight, and when she left, she felt something in her chest blooming. Seasons changed. So did they. Slowly, without drama or fire, but with warmth that grew steady and sure. On quiet nights, they sat beneath strings of paper stars Alara had made, suspended from the ceiling of Luca's old music room. He began playing the piano again. She started writing poetry on real paper. And when Luca finally kissed her, softly, reverently, like she was made of dawnlight, he whispered, "I never believed in healing until I met you." Years later, they still lived in the little town between the hills and the sea. The bookshop had a new shelf labeled Alara's Picks, and Luca had turned his paper cranes into an art installation in the school library. Children whispered about how magic lived in those folded wings. And every rainy Tuesday, no matter what the world brought them, they walked together under the same umbrella, quietly grateful for a love that began in the gentlest way possible, beneath the paper stars. The echoes of Lavender Hill. In the small countryside town of Windermere, nestled between misty hills and lavender fields, lived a quiet girl named Alara. She ran a tiny bookshop on Lavender Hill, where the scent of ink and flowers mingled in the air like a poem never finished. Her days were filled with pages and petals, yet her heart held a silence that even the wind could not stir. One rainy afternoon, a stranger walked in. He wore a dark green coat, his hair damp from the storm. His name was Lucien, a travel photographer escaping the noise of the cities to capture peace. Alara looked up from her counter, and in that fleeting glance, something stirred in her chest, like a forgotten melody returning. Lucien came back every day. Sometimes to buy books. Sometimes to talk. And sometimes just to sit by the window with a cup of tea while the rain danced outside. Alara, always reserved, found herself opening slowly, like one of her lavender blooms to sunlight. Over time, they began to share pieces of their worlds. Alara spoke of her mother's garden, her father's old typewriter, and the novels she loved as a child. Lucien shared tales of distant lands, lost temples, snowy villages, and people whose names he never forgot. But beneath their stories was a deeper longing, an unspoken wish to find a place to belong. One golden evening, while the lavender field swayed under a sunset sky, Lucien took Alara's hand and led her into the field. With the hills as witnesses and the scent of blossoms around them, he said, "I've seen the world, but nothing has ever felt like home until I met you." Alara's eyes brimmed with tears. "I've always lived in stories, Lucien. But now, I want to live one. With you." Their love grew quietly but deeply, rooted like the ancient oaks behind the shop. They would walk through morning fog and write letters they never sent, just to seal their words in ink and heart. Lucien began writing his own stories, inspired by Alara's courage to feel. Alara, in turn, started painting again, filling canvases with colors she thought she had forgotten. But life, as it always does, tested their bond. Lucien received an offer to lead an international photography project, one that would take him away for over a year. Alara encouraged him to go, even though her heart ached at the thought of silence again. Before he left, he promised, "I'll return before the lavender blooms again." Days turned to weeks. Seasons shifted. Letters came, then stopped. Alara waited with faith stitched into every heartbeat. People whispered that he wouldn't return. But she believed. And then, one morning in late spring, when the fields were just beginning to blossom, Alara stepped outside to find Lucien, standing at the edge of the hill, his coat dusty, his eyes tired, but shining. "I never stopped loving you," he said simply. Alara ran to him, laughter and tears falling like summer rain. "And I never stopped waiting." Together, they reopened the shop, turning it into a book and photo gallery. They traveled together, wrote books under the stars, and always returned home, Lavender Hill. And every year, when the fields turned violet, they'd sit hand in hand, remembering the day love found them in the rain.